Hello, everyone. Welcome to Geek Tank, where everything is a matter of geek. I'm your host, Zia,
And I'm your host, Kay.
and today we are talking about adapting the source, part
Deuce.
2, which which reminds us that fuck you, man. No, we have a giveaway going on that's been going on for 2 weeks now. We are
Yes.
giving away a sealed copy of the Phantom Pain Collector's Edition on Xbox One.
Yes, we are.
MGS Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. So, how can people enter this giveaway, Kay?
Easy. Hit us up on social media. We have a Twitter. We have an Instagram. We have a Facebook. We have a Podbean.
Mm-hmm. We
have
got a
s-
YouTube channel.
We have a YouTube channel, obviously, if you're watching this. But you can listen to us on Spotify. Listen to us
Or
on-
Apple Podcasts.
Or the Google Play Store podcast, whatever.
Yeah. All
So
that
we're-
shit.
Yeah, all that shit. Pretty much all you got to do is give us some constructive criticism, man. And hashtag it with Phantom Pain.
That's hashtag PHANTOM PAIN
PHAT.
NT.
AT.
P. Oh, we're fucking confusing people now. Good job, man. Good. Hashtag PHANTOM
Yeah.
PAIN. All one word.
Phantom Pain.
Yes. Something like that.
And US only.
I have to write it down first. I'm an English major, but I have to see it in front of my face.
Okay.
It's hard to do in my head. This is why I don't
Look
win
at the
spelling
description,
bees.
you know, the description of the video or wherever you're listening it on. And it'll be there.
Yeah.
The instructions will be there.
Along with all the links
Mm-hmm.
to the social medias,
Yeah,
the socials, mediums,
Yes.
the media socials.
Yes.
Anyway, so we're talking about source material again. We had a video on this already,
Yes.
but we kind of just ended up ragging on Game of Thrones because, let's face it, Season 8 fucking sucked.
Yes, it did.
And
It's funny because our good friend Adrian was doing on his channel Radioactive Labs was doing episode recaps.
we'll include
right.
a link to his channel, too.
Yeah, and he got up to episode 2, and then like I was talking to him on Messenger, and he's just like, I don't even feel like fucking doing this every episode. Fuck this shit.
Yeah, fuck that. Game of Thrones Season 8 was bad.
But anyways, enough about that. You guys heard about it in
Yeah.
previous episode.
Okay, so rather than rag on the bad stuff,
Mhm.
the big question this time is what makes a good adaptation?
Yeah, what is it? What is
'Cause-
that secret that certain movies or video games
Just adaptations in general.
Adaptations
Yeah.
in general.
What is the
of
Krabby
certain
Patty
sources.
secret formula?
Exactly. What is it? What is that essence that makes it good? Some of these, like, obviously, I can name it a bad example right now, but I actually personally love it.
Okay.
The Street Fighter movie.
Oh,
With
I thought
Jean-Claude Van
I
Damme.
was hoping you were going to say the Super Mario Brothers movie. I love that one, even though most people hate it.
See, we're gonna kill two birds with one stone. you like the Mario movie?
But well,
I'm okay.
let's put it this way: those movies, I enjoy them. Both the ones we mentioned.
Mm.
But I think they're horrible adaptations.
Oh, yeah,
and
they're
we're
horrible.
not talking about bad adaptations anymore. So
Yeah.
we need to get to some good ones.
All right.
So for you, let's start off with you. Yeah, what's a good adaptation of a source material? Doesn't matter where it's coming from, video games to movies or movies to video games, whatever.
Okay. I'll do something different. Movies to video games, right?
Okay,
Batman. I'm gonna hit off with the Batman.
that's comics to video games
No. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is comics to movies, and from movies to video games, because the two Batman games that I'm gonna talk about
Oh,
Batman NES.
Okay.
is based on the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton 1989 Batman.
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, you're right.
And that's a phenomenal game,
Mm-hmm.
hands down. It's a hard ass game. It had
Dude, pretty much everything back in those days was hard.
but it was just a fun fucking game. It had like Mega Man esque elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
challenging boss fights. And then another one, again, Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Batman Returns.
The one on the SNES that
The one
was
on
like
the
a beat 'em up.
SNES was
Okay.
a dope ass fucking beat 'em up.
I remember that one. I enjoyed that. I know I
I
played the NES one that you're talking about.
Yes.
I don't remember it.
It had like the whole platforming element down. It was pretty awesome, like as a Batman, like and you could do the wall jumps and all that, and then you had the gun, and
Yeah.
that was the primary way to kill enemies and stuff.
Was the gun.
Was the gun.
So, since we're on the topic of
Mhm.
Batman, I remember Batman Return of the Joker. There were two versions of that. There was the NES one, and then there was a Game Boy one, original Game Boy. And I remember the NES one having great music and actually being a good game, but it was a bad Batman adaptation because it was kind of just like you were playing it was almost like Mega Man. You were shooting stuff, not punching or anything like that. And then the one on the GBA was a little bit more like Batman because it was like he's not shooting, but he's throwing batarangs.
Yeah, because like the NES ones, I think like the original Batman from like the Michael Keaton one, Tim Burton one, you're shooting batarangs.
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's
like,
strange. It's just
yeah.
like what?
But
I don't
it
think
was cool. It was fun because like at that time
it was fun, but
wasn't,
that's like a bad adaptation.
well, think about it, right? The original movie, the Tim Burton 1989 Batman, is pretty much if you look at it closely, it's a bad adaptation.
I disagree. It captures the atmosphere of Batman really well.
It captures the atmosphere. I'm just saying, as in like the moral code of Batman himself, like he sort of like almost kills, like blatantly shoots at Joker with his fucking plane, yet misses and stuff like that.
I'm blanking out for examples, but I feel like Batman has straddled the line very closely in the past on more than one occasion.
I'm just saying. It's
I know.
It's a
like
good
people.
movie.
I remember people making that point before.
Like he just had like kind of blatant disregard for other human life too in that movie. But it has this charm to it, which in comparison to like Batman vs Superman, that's
okay. Yeah, that was just bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said it captures the atmosphere of
Yeah,
Batman
yeah.
really well. It captures the feel, so it does capture something of that essence.
exactly.
The Tim Burton films.
But what is it?
They are good.
This is why we're doing this episode.
That's a good
What is
question.
it?
I don't think it's something you can pin down. I think it's something you can only know. Maybe if we give enough examples, we'll get close to it. But I can tell you this much: the way I've always looked at the Tim Burton films,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one to have said this. The city itself, Gotham, is very much a character.
Yeah, it's alive.
Yeah, and that's sort of how it is in the comics too. Like,
No, of course, yeah.
Gotham has a very distinct feel to it.
Yeah.
It's simultaneously like something you might see in the real world, but then also not. It's got
Yeah.
like a dreamlike quality, or I should say a nightmarish quality, because it's
like
a
almost
very not
ethereal,
nice
right?
place. Kinda, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's you're getting close,
Yeah.
I guess.
You just can't pinpoint exactly what it is. I
Yeah.
guess,
But video games that did capture the essence of Batman very well would be the Rocksteady games.
yeah.
You know, Batman Arkham series.
Mhm.
They did a fantastic job. And in fact, they sort of captured the essence of the 90s cartoon, which was also an excellent Batman adaptation from comics to television.
All right. Here's another Batman game. I remember buying it day one.
Oh,
Batman
boy.
Begins.
There was a Batman Begins game?
There was a Batman Begins
Dude,
game.
I don't
I
remember
remember watching it in theaters, and I was like, "Oh, I love Batman Begins! Like, this is a pretty dope ass movie." Even though
It's
a lot
going
of
to be
people
a
think
dope-ass game, right?
it wasn't actually that bad.
Really? But did it capture the feel of Batman?
Oh, yes, it did.
It did? Okay.
It did. Like, as in, like the whole premise. It had like this very stealth-like premise to it, where like you gotta scare the shit out of fucking enemies first before you can beat their ass up.
Okay. Yeah, that captures the essence of the Nolan films, I guess, because
Yeah.
that was a big part of Batman Begins was
I
fear.
mean, combat was wonky, but like,
Yeah, well, that just means it's a bad game. Doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean it was a bad adaptation.
yeah.
So it was a good adaptation of the Batman, of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. So what about the Nolan movies? Would you say they're good adaptations of
I would
Batman?
say so.
I'm disagreeing with you on
I
this.
would say so to a certain extent.
Okay, now you're getting me.
Backpedaling.
No, you're getting me on your side. But yeah, you're kind of backpedaling too. But you're getting me on your side.
First two I loved.
Okay.
Rises I wasn't like too thrilled with. Rises obviously with Bane.
Yeah, no, I know.
Cause like I said, like you said, right? With the Tim Burton movies, Gotham has this character to it. And like I can see that with Nolan's.
No, see, that's my argument with Nolan's
In
is
the
that
first two, for me, I can see his version of Gotham is like more modern and it doesn't have necessarily that dreamlike characteristic because like he wanted to do a more grounded, realistic
right.
take to it.
It's different. It captures the Batman essence. I think more so of the character, but then it's like a half and half kind of thing. So it's like, okay, with Tim Burton's, you said that they missed a certain part of Batman's moral compass, right? He was kind of showing disregard for human life. With Nolan's, they capture Batman and his moral compass sort of thing very well, but then the Gotham thing is totally off. For me, Gotham in Nolan's films, it just like, it was like Chicago or New York or any other big city. It just felt like a typical city.
Yeah, and I see
That's what he was going for. He
That's what he
wanted
was
a
going
real
for.
world
Yeah.
approach, but then you lose something from Batman in doing that. The whole point is that you need this dreamlike quality for Batman to make sense to me, because it is kind of silly that just nope, don't kill anyone. These guys are mass murderers, and by not killing these guys, they're just gonna escape Arkham again and keep murdering. Like we've talked about that before, that it's kind of ridiculous that it's like Batman in a sense is sort of responsible for.
Well, that's the thing. Then the comics is doing something bad too, right?
What do you mean?
You have to have that suspension of disbelief in order for these comics to kind of function to an extent.
Of course, because they got to keep writing comics.
They got to keep on writing comics.
But
so it's like
but that's why when you take Gotham with this sort of dreamlike quality, it makes sense. No. Because okay, look, suspension of disbelief. If it's like a dream, it feels like a dream. Like you can have that suspension of disbelief a little better because it feels that way. It's just like you kind of accept it. It's like when you're in a dream and weird shit is happening, you're walking around naked and everyone's cool with it. Like it doesn't strike you as off because it's the dream logic. And then it's like when the real world logic starts invading, you're like, oh shit, I'm naked. That's not right. Then it's like the dream ends.
Okay, but with comics, they do apply a certain level of real world logic. And
They
real
do.
World logic
I mean,
is okay.
dreams do apply a certain level of real world logic.
So real world logic would be like, all right, man, Joker is escaping so many fucking times. We just like the moment we find him guilty,
You
pop
see,
him in the head.
You see, Michael Keaton's Batman had it right. That's the best version of Batman. He's gonna mark his ass. Fuck out of here! I'm tired of this shit.
Enough of Batman. What else is good at it?
Okay,
What about
good
for you?
adaptation. Oh, my turn.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go against the grain. I thought Watchmen was a good adaptation.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just like Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
I like a lot of Alan Moore stuff, and it's strange because Watchmen was beat for beat. It was almost exactly like the comic, at least from what I can remember of both. And people had a problem with that. I remember some people being like, it left something to be desired because it was basically the same thing. And I was like, if you're trying to be true to it and capture the essence, that's a good way to go about it. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily always the right way to handle an adaptation. Yeah. But I think for Watchmen, it worked.
What did Alan Moore think of Watchmen?
He hated it. Okay. He hates all his adaptations, dude. He doesn't like it. Alan Moore is... Okay, I think he's a fantastic writer. Mm-hmm. I think he's got a lot of cool ideas.
Yeah.
I think sometimes He's a bitch.
There you go.
Like he's negative. He's overly negative.
My thing with the Watchmen, right?
Don't
was
put a
good.
satire magic on me, Alan Moore. I'm just joking.
Magic
He's gonna write a satire of me.
to write a satire.
You'd be wasting your time, man. I'm no one. I'm no one.
But thing with Watchmen for me, I think it like when you're adapting certain things to video or movie format, you have to like it's hard. It's not easy.
Right.
Um,
I feel like it's easier with comics though because
with
it's all
comics
it's
it's
a visual
easier.
medium.
Yes. But then even then it's like, with comics you still have certain things explaining certain actions that are going on in the panels.
Right, because it's not actually moving.
Yeah. But with movie, like you could trim away with that stuff because you can actually show that. And the audience will already come to that conclusion.
Right. I'm trying to remember. Did Watchmen have inner narration? Because that's something that you see a lot in comics, and I can't really remember. It's been a while since I read
I think
or
they had
watched
that
it.
with the
Rorschach. Yeah. So, and I guess you can make an argument that you don't need that because it's a movie. You can represent it visually.
Yeah.
So I can understand them. People having a problem with that. That being a criticism.
And that was the thing. Is like I think people were criticizing it because it's a little bit too long for what it was.
Right. Because people are used to like standard 1.5 to 2 hour tops movies.
Yeah.
I guess that's valid. I think if you were to have done that with Watchmen, you might be doing it in injustice.
It seemed like there was a lot of exposition.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's sort of staying true to the comic.
That's staying true to the comic, but then like if you're doing it in a movie format, it's like
yeah, I know you
can-
trim the fat.
You can literally just show that exposition. You need to like actually show the exposition and actually talk the exposition too. And it was just like
So do you think that this would have made the adaptation better? Do you think it still would have captured that essence of the source?
if it didn't how so like
No,
if it-
I'm asking. Do you think that? I think that perhaps some things with the Watchmen movie could have been done better, but I still think that it captured the essence of it very well. Because to me, Watchmen is sort of like a superhero noir.
yeah.
It's slow paced. You've got very ambiguous characters. It's all centered around crime. I mean, Rorschach looks like a noir detective, but with a mask. Yeah. So, for me, it definitely captured the feel. And for me, it's always about the feeling that something has. Because there's a lot of times that you don't remember the exact details of how something happens. You don't remember the exact words, but you always remember that feeling it gave you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's usually how I go about determining whether or not something was a good adaptation of its source material. And I felt like the Watchmen movie captured it.
And then that's something that we're coming to now, right? Is like when you're adapting these source materials, it's what do you trim out? What is it? Do you keep in? What is that core essence of these adaptations that you need to keep in order for it to hit the right notes for whoever?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah.
You want, okay. It's tough because I feel like it's a feeling. I mean, I just said that before, that it's about feeling. I don't think you can really pinpoint it. Yeah. You can sort of talk about things that point you in the right direction, but ultimately, when you start trying to explain it, you start getting into bullshit territory because, for instance, let me use Castlevania as an example. So, if you were to ask me, what is the essence of Castlevania? I could say, okay, well, it's a castle. It's got to have that. So setting is part of it. There's got to be some gothic elements to it. There's got to be monsters and vampires. There's got to be Dracula for certain. And I could say all these things, and they're true, but then you'll find exceptions to the rule, and it's still undeniably a Castlevania game. So, let's use the Dracula example.
Mm-hmm.
Dracula is a big part of Castlevania, but you have Castlevania Lament of Innocence. No Dracula in it, at least not as you know him in the rest of the series, and yet it still feels like Castlevania. But then you could say, oh, it's the castle, and then you consider Order of Ecclesia. I mean, there's a castle in it, but it's a very small part of the game, but it still feels like Castlevania. So it's a very slippery question that's hard to answer in logical terms. It's an intuitive process.
Because we also have another exception to that thing, right? It's like, okay, The Shining.
Yeah, that's another good one.
Stanley Kubrick's Shining does not follow the source material that much. Like, I mean, it follows certain things, but then like it also has its own unique take on it.
Well, that's a very divisive one.
Yeah.
I think people recognize it as very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess based on that, you could say it's a good adaptation of the source. But then it's also looked at as separate and apart from the book.
Yeah.
It's like we could talk somewhat about the differences. I don't think that's important. But it's tough. Because I don't know. The Shining is a really tough example to go with. It's a good one to bring up, but it's hard to talk about because it's like it's an adaptation and it's also not. It's Kubrick's own thing.
Yeah, and it's still like with that is like trying to adapt to fear, right? And he did it.
Yeah,
with Stephen King is like, okay, how do you adapt this level of fear that this book is going to give to the audience?
Uh-huh.
And Kubrick did it in his own way without using much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously he used the book to a certain extent, but
you can definitely tell that this is an adaptation of the book.
Yeah,
I can see.
Yeah.
I can see why King might have a problem with it because I remember like there was times, I don't know if he still feels that way, but I remember King pretty much hating on The Shining because it basically it doesn't gut it, but it's not his story anymore.
Yeah.
It's Kubrick's story. So that's why it's hard to say whether or not this is a good adaptation of the source material. It's a great movie. It's a great book.
I mean, it's a good example for the topic that we're discussing because it's like, what is it? What parts did like this? Like, I just want to clarify this. Like on this episode, it's like we honestly don't have the answers ourselves, and this is why we're raising these topics. So maybe you guys can comment and we'll have to hear other people's thoughts.
I definitely want to hear the audience's opinion on The Shining because even though we talked about it a little bit before this, before shooting this episode, it threw me for a whirl when you brought it up. I'm just like, oh shit, nah, I really don't know what to call it.
Because then they also had a made-for-TV movie.
That was, and I haven't seen that one. So how is that? Entertainment wise, like
it was good.
Okay.
I remember watching it a long time ago when it actually came out on TV. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm wishing that.
Like, okay, you've read The Shining, right?
Yeah.
So, spoiler. 3, 2, 1. They're in the lawn.
Yeah.
Kubrick's is a maze.
Uh-huh.
In the book, there's like actual like animals, right?
Yeah.
So in the made-for-TV movie, they actually had the animals and stuff.
I'm pretty sure the animals were in Kubrick's movie too, right? No.
No, in Kubrick's movie, the lawn is a maze.
Yeah, it's that, but I thought there was animals as well. I thought animals chased Jack Nicholson.
No.
No?
Nope.
Come on, no.
No.
Why do I remember animals? Damn. Okay, so then I'm going to say it is a good adaptation of the source because I'm actually getting them mixed up in my head. If it did that much, then it can't be bad. They had to have like a very similar feel. They were on that same wavelength. Because I remember in my head Jack Nicholson being chased by fucking plant animals.
No, that was a made for TV movie. Like, it was crazy because I remember it looked goofy though. Because like it was like probably like 90s that it came out.
Yeah, I know it was the 90s.
Mid to late 90s.
I'm gonna have to look this up later now.
And like
should have done more research.
The goofy animals, like obviously CG technology back
Yeah.
then was just like wonky. So like they come off their podium, whatever. It's like, it's like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, like I will say the Kubrick one made you feel more due to Jack Nicholson's character and his acting. You felt more dread as he was chasing the family down in comparison to the made-for-TV one.
There's definitely a good amount of dread in the book, I would say. So maybe again in this case, it is about the feeling. It's about the feeling it created, more so than the details, because I feel like Kubrick just changed a lot of details, but then captured the essence of it, and that probably comes down to what you were saying, that there's certain things you got to cut when you're adapting a book to a movie, and so on and so forth.
And that's a certain thing, right? It's like you can't. It's you shouldn't treat your audience like they're stupid.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And Kubrick was one of those very like, what's the word I'm looking for?
He was very meticulous about his shit.
Yeah, and his movies, like, with all the theories about them out there, people reading into it, like all the meaning.
Yeah, all the meanings.
You know,
like,
that he definitely did not treat the audience like they were dumb. So let's move on from The Shining, because that one's a bit of a head scratcher for me. Let's stick with the Stephen King topic though, because I like to bring up Stephen King since he's had another resurgence with his stuff.
Because you have It, and now It Part 2 is gonna be coming out soon.
That's right. What did you think of It? So you've only seen the movies, right? Okay, so how about the old versus the new?
It's funny because like the old one wasn't scary to me. The new one was sort of scary. I'm like, I'm not that. Because the thing with It, the movies, I think they focus too much on the clown aspect. And I'm not like really like scared of clowns.
Well, I mean, that is a big appeal of It, because people are afraid of clowns.
Yeah, so it's like, for me, it's not like.
But it's also like, it's not really a clown.
I know that.
An eldritch creature.
Yeah, I know what it is.
It's a very Lovecraftian thing.
Yes, I know what it is, but I'm just saying, in the movies, they kind of focus too much on like the clown aspect of this character, as in like, okay, how freakishly can we make this clown look?
Yeah.
How can we induce fear with this clown? And I will say the newer one got me all kind of fucked up with the opening. It's like I wasn't expecting they were gonna go that far.
Oh, with the kid.
Yeah. Georgie. Fucking, I was like.
So I'll give it to them for that.
I was like, damn. First one did not do that. I was like.
So okay, the first one doesn't do that.
Yeah.
That is not true to the book, because the book is sort of like the new movie, except in the book, when his arm gets bitten off, he doesn't get pulled down into the sewer. People just see this kid out there with his fucking arm missing, and I don't think he ever gets pulled into the sewer. Only his arm ever goes missing.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a difference. Again, going back to this whole feeling thing, because for me it's always about feeling when adapting the source. I don't know that the new one captured the feeling.
Did you watch the old one?
Years ago. And I read the book later.
Yeah.
And every time I start reading that book, I get like halfway and then I put it down for some reason and then I restart it. So I've never finished it. But from what I remember of the movie and what I've read of the book, the old movie captures it better than the new one. But the new one feels easier to watch. Like it's, as far as movies go, like you know how like movies have to hit a certain rhythm to keep you entertained.
Well, the other thing with this movie too, right, is like it felt like a little bit, even though it's in the older setting, it felt kind of updated to the current social climate.
That's true. And for those that have read the book or watched the old movie, like there's a lot of racist stuff that goes on, but it's also appropriate to the setting.
Yeah.
And that actually adds a certain weight to it that makes you feel more for the characters because they're enduring that stuff. And it also makes it kind of scary. But
in comparison to the new one, I mean, they sort of go into it a little bit. They hint at it.
They hint at it, but I think they didn't want to.
They don't want to like focus, so like put a lot of emphasis on it.
Yeah.
I don't think the old one did that though.
I think it did. I think they touched on the racism much more.
And that's where it kind of comes down to is like, you know, what do you kind of trim out and
yeah, it's tough. I know why they did it though. It's again, it comes down to being appropriate for the modern climate. So it wasn't a bad choice on their part.
Because like you could say like they trimmed it out, and you said like it does have a little bit weight, but does it real like
it wasn't in there for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't in there just to, you know, for the sake of yeah, we're gonna throw this in there. Like it was, at least in my opinion, it was like, I won't get too much into it, but it felt like it was appropriate. You see, even I'm having we gotta streamline this for modern audience. It wasn't a laughing matter. It was scary.
Yeah.
The whole thing was scary. Like the bullies are just as scary as the clown. So, yeah. But other Stephen King stuff. I'm going to talk about my favorite, which is Misery.
Okay.
That case of adaptation sucks, even though people love the movie. If you've read the book and watched the movie, Misery is a book that is very much. It's because it's written about a writer who's writing a book. There's like levels of inception with the.
It's a writer's. It's a
writer's book.
It's a writer's book.
It's hard to adapt. Yeah. They do it, and it's still an entertaining movie, but the book is better.
Yeah,
it's better in every way. Have you watched the movie?
I vaguely remember it. Yes, it had James Caan.
Yeah,
and the one lady,
Kathy Bates.
Yeah, Kathy Bates,
who's now very popular, thanks to stuff like American Horror Story.
Is she?
Yeah, she's in American Horror Story.
Huh.
Yeah,
that's another thing, right? American Horror Story loosely adapts certain folk tales into their own unique story.
But I wouldn't call that an not of adapting the source. That doesn't fit.
No, it's like adapting mythological.
Well, yeah, you could say that's adapting the source, but it's going by its own title, and it's its own thing.
Like what is it? Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, I wouldn't call that an adaptation either. That's like a.
No, it's funny. It's just the fact that like it captures this thing, like like you have all these tropes, like it's adapting these different tropes and like playing it up in a sense.
That's more like a deconstruction of the horror genre, though. So it's different. Cabin in the Woods is a strange movie. I like it, but I also don't. It's like from an intellectual standpoint, it's cool, but as a movie, like going into a movie trying to be entertained, it's just okay.
It's fun. I thought it was fun.
It's fun, but it's again like it's to look at it as something special, like you got to look at it as a deconstruction of the genre, which means you got to turn the intellectual critic's brain on, and it's, you know,
I wouldn't say that much about it. Like,
that's what I say about it.
like, it
That's what
doesn't-
I say. I'm a horror movie fan, and I'm just like, again, it's cool. That's it. I don't feel like watching it ever again. Someone else that's been adapted a lot lately is Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman, yeah.
Yeah. So we watched American Gods,
Yeah.
right? And I know we're talking about good adaptations now, but well, you haven't read the book, but
I read like halfway through it.
okay. So then you at least the point to which we watched in the show, you know. Wait, did you feel like it was a good adaptation or no?
I feel like if they changed the name of it,
So it's not a good adaptation.
it would have been good.
Okay, I'm
But
gonna
the fact that it's like called American Gods.
damn, we're straying from the good part. It's supposed to be good adaptations. Why is this fucking topic so hard?
It
Wait,
is-
why do I feel like this is like we're not getting any
No.
closer to it? We're close, but we're not. It's fucking water, man. You try to grab it, and it's out of your hand the second you squeeze.
I guess you can say that like there are good adaptations, right?
There are most certainly good adaptations, but we're not getting any closer to defining what a good adaptation is. It's
okay,
like
The Crow.
The Crow, and it's
The Crow is on point. Here's the thing with The Crow, which is it's just such a fucking tragedy. The book was, made out of tragedy.
okay.
The movie was made and then a tragedy happened during the making of
Yeah,
the
that's
movie.
that's not cool, man. That was Bruce Lee's son.
I know, but yet that movie just captures that essence of tragedy.
So much so that it affects real life.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's crazy. Like Crow is like one of my all-time favorite like comic book movies.
Well, how about the comic? Do you think it's better than the comic, or is it just on par?
I would say it's on par.
Okay. So, I haven't read the Crow comic, but I've seen the movie and I love it. So, comparing it to the comic, how true is it to it? Like, is it like Watchmen in that it's almost like panel for panel? It's true to it.
I wouldn't say no. I mean, there's certain things like it has that 90s action like
No, I mean, well, it was
feel
in the
to-
90s.
Yeah. So it has those like certain tropes that it nails, but it's just with The Crow, like the movie is just like the fact of like, okay, they put the emphasis on the tragedy and then it is like that's the central part of the comic book
Mm-hmm.
is how how his man gets over
So they stay
yeah.
true to the themes,
the
and the
themes and all that.
character.
the character, and then the tone, like the music is just on point. I love the fucking music and
Mm-hmm.
the city. It has that Gotham like feel, like that gothic feel to it, and it hits all the right notes for me for like that's a dope ass adaptation. And like
Okay.
it changed things up, but it's also they got it right.
And then they made the sequels.
We don't talk about that.
Why would you bring that up? Don't talk about that.
Don't talk about that.
Okay. What about video games though? Adapting video games to movies. Is there any? Okay, we started off a little bit like that
Yeah,
with
Street
Street
Fighter,
Fighter and Mario,
Mario, right?
but those weren't good. Those weren't good examples.
First Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
First Mortal Kombat movie, I would say hands down is one of the best
But is
video game adaptations into a movie.
it okay? But how? How is that when it's actually not like Mortal Kombat? There's virtually no gore.
It's
That's
I
a
don't
big
know.
part of Mortal Kombat, isn't it? Or is it not?
It is.
What makes it good? Because it is good. The first one is.
Yes.
Annihilation can go fuck itself.
Yeah, I know
But
that. That's what I'm saying. Like the first Mortal Kombat.
it's
Some
Sean
reason,
Connery. It's got to be Sean Connery.
you talk. Sean Connery was never.
Not Sean Connery.
Christopher
Christopher Lambert. I
Lambert.
don't. I got
You got Highlander.
because Highlander.
Confused.
Yeah, because Highlander was an adaptation too, wasn't it? Wasn't it a comic first,
I don't think so.
or maybe it was a movie that got adapted into a
Yeah.
comic. It's probably
It was a
not.
movie that got adapted into a comic. It got adapted into a cartoon.
It was going to be adapted into a video game.
Yeah, and then it was adapted into an anime.
Okay, that I didn't know.
Highlander.
It was
as an
adapted
anime.
into a TV series.
Yeah, I love that TV.
The TV series was
though.
good. That was good adaptation.
Fucking hell yeah, that's a good adaptation.
Yeah.
Princes of
but
the
Chris-
universe.
But Christopher Lambert was better than the other guy in
no,
the TV series.
they both are good.
They both were good, but Christopher Lambert.
Adrian Paul was a really good. Yes, yeah.
I'm
I
talking
can't
about
believe
the
actually
character,
never-
not the
yeah.
actor. But like
No, they were
like-
good. I liked it.
it's Connor McLeod and Duncan McLeod, right? Yeah, Connor McLeod.
And then they after the TV show is like
They
it was
had a
like-
crossover.
No, not even the crossover.
Oh.
Because they exist in the same universe. The TV show.
No, there was a movie that had them cross over.
I know that because it's not like they crossed
Well,
over. It's like it's just kind of like okay.
Yeah, I know. What
They're already in the same universe. It's
but
like,
they
yeah.
never had any interaction like directly. Like
No, they did.
It's implied
When
because
the TV show first started in the first episode, Christopher Lambert is in the first episode. And he's like, "Oh,
Oh,
you're
I don't
part
remember
of
that.
yeah."
I don't remember that.
See,
Damn, that's a long time ago though.
yeah, I used to watch that show religiously, man.
Dude, that shit was cool.
Yeah,
I was
because
one
one
to
of
be.
the guys. Okay, so one of the people in the Highlander TV show, I think his name was Manos. He was one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse
Uh-huh.
in the show,
Yeah.
and he
In
was,
real life. Yeah, well, we're off on a tangent, but who cares?
Yeah.
Highlander's
He
cool.
Yeah, he was in one of my favorite TV shows with Jeffrey Donovan, Touching Evil,
Okay.
and he had this really dope arc.
Where did he touch the evil?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Like that. Some of those actors are really good, man.
I just remember it was fucking cool as hell that they would fight with katanas. And it's like,
Mhm.
you're a Westerner. Why do you have a katana? Why are you just carrying a katana in your coat? That's the coolest shit. And you fight other immortals for what reason and chop off their head? It's like to get the ultimate prize. I think was the whole deal,
Yeah,
which was to become mortal.
not even mortal. I think it was.
Well, that's what it was implied that the ultimate prize was becoming mortal because in the original Highlander movie, it's supposed to be him and the other guy, the bad guy. That they're the last
Yeah.
immortals. He kills the dude. His ultimate prize is that now he's mortal.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one comes along, and it's like dystopian future. He's immortal again. It was kind of wacky.
Yeah, it was wacky because like they were talking about like, oh yeah, it's something like aliens and stuff like that.
Bro, I don't
It
even-
was weird.
I don't know. It was cool though. It was fun. All right, we're getting off Highlander. It's too much.
Well, no, it's like look, the TV show adapted it, right? Adapted a movie.
Yeah, and it did a good job.
I thought it did great because like it was like okay, it would do this. You know how like certain superhero shows have villain of the week?
Yeah,
Highlander TV show is immortal
of the week. Yeah.
And then it's like you go into the past, see how their interaction is.
Yo,
and
this
then boom, and, like,
this is
presents.
the perfect point to segue into what I was trying to get to before. When I say-
Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, video
Yeah, no.
games to movies. So, you saw the movie.
Mhm.
You've played the game.
Yeah.
How did it do?
Just like every other Assassin's Creed game, right? The good thing about Assassin's Creed games is what? When you're in the past.
When you're actually playing a fucking assassin.
And when you're playing an assassin. Same thing with the movie. The cool shit, the dope parkour, and all that kind of action stuff was in the past. Give us more of that. But they followed too closely to the games. Or
So
like where
so
had the
it
breaking point.
captured the source too well.
Yeah. When that's the argument that people can say with Watchmen.
That it captured it too well. I don't know. People
Yeah.
don't complain about the comic, but I've seen people complain about the movie.
Yeah.
For me, it was just. I mean, yeah, I guess it was too much of the same, but
Mm-hmm.
you would think that someone that had no intention of reading the comics because some people just don't like reading. They
Yeah.
don't like comics. They just a movie's different because they're just sitting down watching it.
Yeah.
So you would think that the fact that it's so true to the comic is a good thing because they get that experience. They understand why it's so magical, but I think it was mostly fans of the comic had a problem with the movie,
Yeah.
at least from what I've perceived.
Yeah, what I've perceived too. I think it was a lot of who were fans of the comics had problems with it.
Or maybe it's because they're Alan Moore fans and Alan Moore doesn't like it.
Maybe.
So Alan Moore says, "This is shite." And they're like, "This is shite."
Shite.
You want to know what was an interesting adaptation as well as a very good one?
What?
Peter Jackson's King Kong the video game.
Because I was like, okay.
So, yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean
Peter Jackson King Kong video game. That came out right around the time when Xbox 360 and PS3 started coming out. So it was like that next gen game, and it was like, okay, holy shit.
But I played it on GameCube.
Did you?
Because basically I had a GameCube and I didn't have many good games for GameCube, so I was like, okay, let me get a game that looks pretty good for GameCube, and then it was very good.
Yeah. And it was a fun game because like you play King Kong, you have these fucking. Because I remember going into the store and playing like the demos.
So you mentioned playing King Kong. That was cool and all. But actually, the first-person sequences where you're playing the guy, I don't remember if it was a guy in the movie or what, but you're playing the guy going through the jungle. That shit was fun. That was intense. That was almost like a survival horror game. First-person survival horror because you're fighting dinosaurs and shit. It was nuts. Picking up spears and stabbing dinosaurs. Like, shit.
Because, okay, so from what I remember, because I only played the demo when I went to the stores. Is because like I said, I wanted to see how the Xbox 360 looks and graphics wise, and it looked phenomenal for that time.
Yeah, it was a pretty game.
Yeah, it was like you're King Kong, and it just started becoming like Tekken in a sense.
Oh, like fighting the
T-Rex. Two T-Rexes.
I think they called it the V-Rex.
Because it's like, okay, they show you this pretty intro into the game and all that. That's the whole scene, the cutscene animation, and all of a sudden it just transitions right into the gameplay. But, like, the area itself is a fucking ring. Like, this jungle ring.
Oh, yeah.
In a sense where it's like, okay, you gotta do combat stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is like Tekken.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's better than the movie.
Yeah? Oh, the movie was just too slow. It was just too long, and it was just...
It's an adaptation of an old... Okay, Peter Jackson's King Kong the movie is an adaptation of the original old King Kong movie. And it tries to be overly dramatic.
Yeah.
And it's slow. It's like a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
Like all of Peter Jackson's movies, it puts me to sleep. And dude, as a kid, I loved King Kong because that was the coolest shit. Giant monkey just fucking knocking planes out of the sky and shit. That was cool. And then the movie fucked it up, but the video game did it right. It took all the good parts. It's like, okay, the people in the jungle, all that scary shit there on Skull Island, you got to fight it. Now you actually got to survive it.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, how do you adapt like something like that into a video game? You have to capture, like, okay, you have to translate the spectacle into gameplay.
But that made it better. They took out all the bullshit.
All the bullshit. That's what it is. It's like, with translating a movie into a video game, it's like, how do you manage to capture that spectacle? How do you manage to give it controls, good, tight gameplay and graphics and whatnot?
They even gave Peter Jackson's King Kong, the video game, a better ending than the movie. So you have the normal ending where Kong dies, right?
Yeah.
So, spoilers, 3, 2, 1. In the video game, they give you an alternate ending where suddenly, now it becomes like a fighter pilot game, and you go in a plane and start fighting the fucking military that's shooting Kong down.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So you're shooting down planes to help Kong escape, and then you take him back to Skull Island. So the alternate ending is that King Kong survives.
Wow.
I don't know how this dude, Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure in the movie he was an actor, the main hero. If that's even
Adrian-
who you play,
Adrian Brody.
yeah.
Yeah.
If that's even who you play in the game, but this man could get in a fighter plane and fight the fucking military. He can dogfight around them.
Damn.
That's
Okay.
that's how I remember at least. I'm gonna look it up later. I should have did a little more research before this episode, but I'm almost positive. I know that it's an alternate ending that Kong survived.
They're hoping for a sequel.
No, they're just like,
Godzilla vs. King Kong.
look. Oh yeah, oh shit, they should do that. King Kong versus Godzilla game. Or why don't they just make a game like Rampage, like for modern systems?
It's hard. I don't think it's easy.
Probably not. It's because was Rampage really that fun a game? Like, I
It
never cared.
was.
For,
I
I didn't
mean-
care for it. I guess you know.
Well, look at that. They translated Rampage into a movie. Rock.
Oh god, that's another adaptation. But was it good?
I didn't watch it.
It looked like Mighty Joe Young, but with giant monsters.
I didn't watch it. I
Like,
mean,
from the trailer, I was just like, "This is Mighty Joe Young with the Rock."
I know they were like forcing, like, no offense to The Rock. I love the guy. Great guy. I was a little bit too fatigued of The Rock. I was like,
Okay, how else do you get people to watch a movie that no one wants to watch? You put the fucking Rock in it. Because he's the Rock.
I don't know, man. I'm going to watch Hobbs and Shaw for sure.
I'm watching that because Idris Elba's in it.
Yeah. Idris Elba and Jason Statham.
Yeah. I mean, I was a little rocked out too. And
Yeah.
Statham, like, yeah, I mean, I like him too, but it's like, it's been so much Fast and the Furious that now the only reason I'm going to see this is because Idris Elba's the Black Superman. It's fucking cool. It's like,
I love
this is no longer about cars. This is a fucking super soldier.
see that, right? There's like this deviated from its source material.
How the fuck? It's a spin-off, man. It's okay. It's not adapting the source. It's deviating from the source material, but it's fucking good. It's doing it the right way.
Idris Elba just coming out in the trailer like,
I'm like the Black Superman. I'm just like,
this is fucking dope.
I see the trailer and I'm just like, I'm watching this. Fucking A. The ways they get you, man.
I know, man. Oh, dude.
You know, it's funny. We talked about Myth earlier.
Mhm.
You brought up Myth, and we were kind of like, wait, does that count? That is adapting the source, right?
Mm-hmm.
Troy.
Yeah.
Troy's an adaptation of the Iliad, and it's the damn good one.
It's a very damn good one. You can take, like, okay. You know how to jump back to Batman, where you're like, okay, Nolan didn't capture certain things.
I know where you're going with this.
What?
Because Batman's sort of like a mythology. Like, superheroes are kind of like a mythology.
Yes.
And Nolan took it and was like, hey, this is Batman if he was in our world, the
Yes.
real world.
Yeah.
And then Troy was like, hey, if there were no gods in the Iliad, there were like no real gods.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the Iliad would be like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they do capture the essence of the character and their stories.
Mhm. Yes.
So yeah. But Nolan is still lacking the Gotham character aspect,
Mhm.
whereas the Iliad doesn't have that sort of thing going for it.
Well, Iliad sort of hints at that kind of stuff, right? Like when Achilles goes to see his mom.
I can't remember the scene, to be honest.
Achilles goes to see his mom in the river or something like that, by some
Okay.
river.
Okay.
And she tells him, like, if you go, your name will be known forever,
Mhm.
but you
You won't come back.
won't come back.
And Achilles with that hubris, just he goes.
And
He's
then,
I don't
like,
care, Mom.
it's funny because, like, you know, and then she says also, but if you don't go, you'll have a family, you'll be happy, but your name will be lost to time. As family, like your name is gonna be gone. So, and then, like, she just sort of disappears. Like, they don't, like, literally show her just, like, disappear.
Yeah, I know, you
but,
just-
like,
you
it's just
don't-
kind of like you're just kind of like alluded, like, okay, that was sort of a god in a sense, like. Or
I mean,
like
you could see why history
Yeah.
history would misconstrue it as
Yeah.
that.
And that's the thing, right? Like, it took those myths and gave it this like real world take. Once again, spoiler with Achilles.
So, this is less about how the source was adapted and more just about like an interesting little fun fact. In Herodotus's histories, Herodotus was a Greek historian. There's a lot of stuff in there that's historically accurate, but then there are times when gods just kind of show up to people, and Herodotus just reports on this like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like, dude goes back to report a battle. And it's like, hey, yeah, on my way back, I also ran into this god. And he said, build him a temple. By the way, this is what happened in the battle. So it's like, it's strange. Makes you wonder, right? Like, what if the gods were actually there?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like interesting fun fact about.
Well, that's the
that
thing
stuff.
about myths. Like, this is hopefully a topic that maybe we can get into in the future. Where I wanted to hear your take on, like, you know, what you believe in these mythic characters that we've known throughout history.
Again, it's another thing I wish I did a little more research on before we went in, but you know, I didn't. You can't think of everything.
No.
I gotta check out. Like, I gotta actually read Herodotus's histories because I've only read like summaries, and I might even be getting it mixed up with something else right now. So,
because like
disclaimer.
Like, the one thing that like was really coolly adapted, like it had this real world take to it, was with Achilles again. Once again, like
Going back to the real world stuff.
You see, spoiler, Achilles getting shot like with arrows a bunch of times.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much everyone knows the Iliad at this point.
Yeah.
You learn it in school. If you don't know it,
Achilles' heel. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's where the term comes from. Achilles in the mythology dies because his heel is the only place that is vulnerable. And then in the movie,
you see him just take arrows to the chest. Obviously, it has an effect on him.
Yeah, but he's just ripping them out.
He's ripping them out.
Badass.
Yeah, and then eventually succumbs to his wounds. But when the people find him, they all just notice that there's an arrow in his heel.
Right.
And that's like, okay, so that is what did him in.
Yeah, and obviously they don't have autopsies back then.
No.
They're not going to have, CSI come and be like, this is how Achilles died.
Or it's not even that. It's like, how maybe you tell that story.
Yeah. Well, of course, because when things,
you know?
when you tell a story by word of mouth, everyone loves to embellish to make it interesting.
Exactly.
So it's just going to get even more
in order to
ridiculous.
hype your bro up. You're like, yo, this dude was immortal, pretty much.
Yeah, this dude was taking arrows, man.
Yeah.
You couldn't stop him. Then they got him in the ankle.
Yeah.
That was it. That was what did him in, man. It's the fucking ankle. Bro, this man was bulletproof. He was arrow-proof.
So, it's funny.
But, man, they broke his ankles.
Because this is hopefully in the future we will develop a topic about like these certain mythological heroes. I wanted to like really develop a topic about talking about.
Well, I'll have to reread stuff. I mean, I got all my mythology books up on the shelf. I don't know if the camera can see it. I got a lot of stuff up there. But yeah, I think I wouldn't know what else to bring up with adapting source material though, unless.
But then, what is it? What is that source? What are we adapted from, Zia?
Bro, you want the Zen answer or like a philosophical answer? I don't know, man. You know the source, but you also don't.
Yeah.
That's why I love Bruce Lee's analogy of water, because it's like anytime you start to wrap your mind around it, the second you try to actually, grasp it, which is put into words, you immediately like, well, fuck, now I don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that moment so many times where I'm like, oh, I just had a big realization, and then I try to voice it, and I'm like, damn, that doesn't make sense. Hold on.
So what is it for you guys that that captures that essence of a good adaptation, and that what is it for you that makes it a good adaptation, and what is that source? Yeah. If you guys can sum it up in some words for you guys.
Yeah, and give us some examples to back it up. Like what are some good adaptations that you know that maybe we didn't cover?
Yep. That maybe we need to watch. I don't know. Yeah. I love watching shit, man. So just suggest me stuff.
Yeah. And also, don't forget, we have the giveaway going on. So
yes.
If you want this,
Or
fuck you, K. If you want to win that from K, so you can actually take this and say to him, "Fuck you, man,"
wow.
then enter. Give us some feedback and
That is a bad adaptation.
You're a bad adaptation.
You're a bad adaptation of a human being right now.
Oh, bitch.
All right, guys.
All right, so this has been Geek Tank. I'm Zia,
I'm Kay.
and we will see you next time.